All right, how's everybody doing today? Okay, that's pretty lame. So we're going to get a little bit more energy going. And I have learned so many things already this morning. So first thing I learned is that my shoe game is weak. So Manny brought that to me, my shoe game is weak. Now I knew that already because my kids tell me that. I actually had a pair of 30-year-old sneakers that finally fell apart in the gym. Like the sole literally fell apart. Not that I'm cheap or anything, but like I'm just telling you. And so my kids were like, hey, you gotta do something. Dad, you gotta upgrade. And I realized my boots are so early Manny, so I gotta work on that game. The other thing that I wanted to start with is also, this is the 25th anniversary, folks, and that applause was kind of lame, so I'm going to ask you to stand up, and for the 25th anniversary, can we get a standing ovation? Now stay standing, and for your neighbor, for the person next to you, I want you, if you know them well enough, give them a hug. If you don't know them well enough, give them a handshake or a high five or whatever you want to do. Okay. Now folks, if you can sit back down, they only gave me 25 minutes, so we gotta fly, okay? Now, related to that, I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. All right, now you people looking at me, you ain't closing your eyes. So let's try that. Close your eyes. Now first, take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. 4 deep breaths, 4 seconds. You're going to then hold it for 4 seconds. You're then going to breathe out through your mouth. 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe back in. 4 deep breaths. Holding it. 4 seconds. Back out. 4 seconds. Hold it. Back in 4 seconds. 4 breaths. Hold it 4 seconds. Back out and release it out through your body and through your hands. Everybody feeling good? Can we try that again? Everybody feeling good?
Yes.
Okay, what did we just do?
Breathe.
We took a breath, right? And we gave some hugs out. You shook hands. Who said that? Human. That's what I'm talking about, brother. Nice. Because we are uniquely human. Now, can an AI breathe? No. And if you are touched by a robot, there is a different chemical reaction than if you're touched by a human in terms of your mental, physical well-being. Your body knows when it's another human versus not. God kind of intended that. Right? So why do I stress that? Because in this era, the irony of everything about AI that we just talked about over the last couple of hours is that the irony is that it makes us more human. And it stresses the fact that we have to be more human in this era. And those things that make us uniquely human become even more important. And those things that we call soft skills are now the most important skills of all. And so for my talk today, I'm going to talk about leading humans in the age of AI, or leadership in the age of AI. And we're going to go really fast. We're going to share lots of different stories as we go. But the fundamental thing for you to remember is that our humanity, human dignity, the value of the whole person, becomes even more important in this moment than less. Even more important in this moment than less. And so let's get started and let's move quickly. So first, Am I going in the wrong direction? Well, we're just gonna wing it. How's that? That's what I'm here, because I don't want you all going to lunch. I don't even know where I am. So.
Marty, get started. We'll fix it in 2 minutes.
Okay. There we go. We'll go back to that. Sorry for the picture. We'll go back to that and just get started. Okay, so you guys have been seeing lots of different news reports, right? Harvard Business School also did a recent study that just came out, right? And CNBC just came out and they said, you know what? This whole AI thing, all the things that we are doing in this room as business leaders, we're scaring the crap out of it. Because what are we doing? We're walking around and everybody's talking about cost efficiency and cost takeout. And we're going to replace humans with agents, right? And oh, by the way, these agents are smarter than us, faster than us, more efficient than us. So our workers, folks that report to us, we're increasingly scaring them as we go about and having a conversation. And if you look at the language we are using, and again, Harvard Business School just came out with something similar, where they had a report that said why Gen AI feels so threatening to workers. It's because of how we are communicating and talking about it. So as opposed to talking about growth, as opposed to talking about assistance from an AI that will make us better, as opposed to talking about learning, we're talking about all the things that are scaring our workers as we go forward. And we have to, in this room, be honest with the fact that that anxiety and that fear and that trepidation is real. 2 weeks ago, I spent all day up on Capitol Hill. I met with 9 different legislators. I would tell you 6 of them sounded more like technophobes and more fearful of AI than seeing its promise and its benefits. And so, what I want to talk about today is what can we do as leaders to close that gap? And what does it mean to lead in an era of AI? What can we do as leaders as we go forward? And luckily, folks, we just published some new research, which we will send you, apparently, that has lots of facts and figures that we just published last month on leadership in an age of AI. And we surveyed 1,300 C-suite executives, nearly 4,600 employees across 20 industries in 20 countries. And it didn't matter the industry and it didn't matter the country, but what did matter is leadership. What did matter is leadership and culture and values. And did I mention the technology? No. The difference between 18% of companies that are getting enterprise ROI and those that aren't isn't the technology, it's not which platform, it's not how are you implementing, it's not your infrastructure, it's not your digital core, it's leadership, it's values, and it's whether or not you have a culture that will take you forward. So we looked and we studied the 18% of companies that believe and can prove that they're getting an ROI from AI. And what they share is a fundamentally different approach to leadership. They grew revenue nearly 2 percentage points higher than their peers last year. Profit was more than 1.5 points higher. And those margins sustained over time are the difference between organizations that endure and those that fade. Our CEO, Julie Sweet, puts it this way. The future of AI in companies is human in the lead, not just in the loop. I keep coming back to that phrase because it means something very, very precise. Human in the lead isn't a slogan. It is fundamentally about deciding who sets the direction, what direction go in, deciding what matters, who's accountable for what the technology actually does in the world. And it says that technology is the instrument, but leadership decides what and how it plays. So, with your theme today, beyond the algorithm, okay, here we go. There's Julie Sweet. This quote, just in time, well done. Good job, Corey. With her quote, right, it says, you know, we've spent the last 3 years talking about what AI can do. and what the latest model can do. But what really matters is, with that question largely answered, the question is, hey, what are we going to do with it? And much harder and much less settled is, how do we lead it, how do we govern it, and how do we build it into organizations in ways that are durable and fair, and make people's working lives actually better, not just faster and more efficient. So we are switching the question from a technical question to a leadership question. And ultimately, that leadership will decide whether or not you get an ROI or not. In this study, we found that only 1/3 of organizations have aligned their talent strategy with their AI strategy. And as I mentioned, only 18% of employees say their leadership has clearly communicated how the organization will navigate the change ahead. And 86% of companies are spending more on AI, yet fewer than half of these companies are increasing their amount of upskilling of their employees. Think about that for a second. So they're investing in the tech, but not in the people. Not in the people. Okay, so now what I want to do is quickly give you, from that study, our 6 takeaways for leadership in the era of AI. And, so our first one. Here's some of the stats. We'll send you all the stats, right? 4 times more likely to, these are the 18% that are getting the ROI return. 4 times more likely to improve workforce adaptability, 7 times more likely to strengthen organization culture, 6 times more likely to create great employee experience. They're using AI to make the experience better for their employees. They're investing in AI, training and upskilling, but also improving the employee experience. And then here's all the financial results that you see there, including around innovation. So, quickly, who can tell me who Michelangelo was? Okay. Painter. He's a painter. All right, your name is? Leanne. All right, so did Leanne get that right? Yes? No? Maybe? Yes, she did. Okay, so Michelangelo isn't just a painter. He's arguably the greatest painter of all time. Yeah, some might say Leonardo, but I'm going to put my money on Michelangelo. Why? Because he painted the Sistine Chapel in 4 years. Kind of crazy, right? But does everybody know the story of Michelangelo? And why is it your leadership in the age of AI, curiosity and courage over certainty? Because Michelangelo's story is one where he started out as a painter. And here's the greatest artist, arguably in the history of the world. He starts out as a painter, and his dad doesn't want him to be a painter. He wants him to be an accountant. Anybody else have that problem? So dad wants him to be an accountant. He's so upset at his son for wanting to paint and do something frivolous that he says, I won't allow this. So Michelangelo has to go to the best painter in all of Florence and convince him of his skills when he's not even a teenager yet, and get the best painter in all of Florence to pay him, which was not how the model worked. You were supposed to pay the teacher, but to pay him to be his apprentice. And in a few short years, Michelangelo becomes even better than his teacher. So the teacher's like, wait a minute, I paid you, now you're more famous than I am, and you're just a little teenager? Not only that, people start coming from all around to get their picture painted by Michelangelo. Everybody have your cell phones? They got your cell phones. And when you have your cell phones, what do? You take pictures all the time. But they didn't have that back then. So if you were rich, what did you do? You had a portrait taken, portrait done. And if you could get somebody that was a young rising star, all the better, because not only did you have your portrait done, but you had it done by somebody that was famous or going to be famous. So here he is, arguably, having already passed the teacher, one of the greatest artists of all time, and he's just a teenager. But guess what, folks? One day, he decides, I'm going to stop painting. whole town of Florence is like, what the heck? Michelangelo's gonna stop painting. And he says, yeah, I'm gonna take up sculpture. Here's a kid who's on top of the world. He stops and he says, you know what? I'm going to learn sculpture. I'm going to take up sculpture. So all the townspeople are like, yo, that's crazy. He's making bank. He's making money. And he's going to give all that up, and now he's going to take up sculpture. So as legend has it, there was a little kid that went up to him and said, yo, Mike. Yo, Mike. Michael Jordan, best in the world, right? He goes, yo, Mike, what's up with that? What are you doing? Why would you give up painting for sculpture? You don't even know how to do sculpture. Michelangelo looks down at the little kid, and he says, yeah, I know. But I was walking by a piece of marble, and I saw an angel yearning to be free. I was walking by a piece of marble, and I saw an angel yearning to be free. Take out your phones. We got time to go, people. Take out your phones. Let's go. Let's go. Take out your phones. Google Michelangelo and Google angel. Michelangelo, angel. Michelangelo, angel. Google it. See what comes up. So why do I tell you this story? Because when he's on top of the world, he has the courage to disrupt himself. He has the courage to change. He has the courage to reinvent. He has the courage to transform. He has the courage to learn something new. And because he does that, he goes on and becomes a better painter. And he can industrialize painting. And he can take a different perspective to sculpture. And he can take a different perspective to painting, and would go on to paint the Sistine Chapel in 4 years. And he would create the David. And he would create the Pieta. Arguably the greatest artist of all time becomes the greatest of all time because he has the courage to disrupt himself. So the question is, with AI and everything else, do you have the courage to disrupt yourselves? And can you do it as an individual, but also as an enterprise? And not just do it, but do it even when you're on top. Because the moment Accenture stops disrupting itself will be the moment we cease to lead and shape our industry with both curiosity and courage. Curiosity and courage. First attribute of leading in the era of AI. Can we advance? Or possibly. Okay, all right, we'll keep moving. All right, next story. All right, the second thing that leaders found in terms of our survey, and this is Satya Nadella from Microsoft. Second thing is that leaders are treating culture as something they are actively responsible for. Actively responsible for. Today, according to our survey, only 1 in 5 employees say they have a meaningful voice in how AI is being introduced at their organization and what it's being directed towards. And 2/3 of companies that are getting this right, that 18%, are treating culture as a genuine strategic asset, measuring it, shaping it, holding themselves accountable to it, and believe that culture is essential, not as a backdrop to AI, but it is in fact the ingredient for the AI strategy and success in the first place. Not the technology, the culture of the organization will make the technology successful. So just think when Satya first became CEO of Microsoft. Did he start fixing all of Microsoft's technology? No. He started on the culture of the place. And because of that, asking the question of what kind of culture do I want to build? He moved Microsoft from a culture of know-it-alls to learn-it-alls. Just like we talked about, know-it-alls to learn-it-alls. And from 2014 to now, Microsoft's market cap went from 300 billion to 2.5 trillion. A learning culture, even at Microsoft. All right, next up. All right, you're up again, sorry. Okay, so the next one. These are two folks that you may or may not have heard about in your journey, right? The first is Fei Lee, sorry, and she is considered the godmother of the internet and of AI, and what we're emphasizing here is the idea of AI and leadership always having to be centered on humans, people, and customers. And you heard this from the prior panel. Bob was talking about it in the context of healthcare, humanizing of healthcare. We also heard it in terms of life sciences as well, right? The whole focus here is saying, when you look at the companies that are succeeding in AI, that 18%, they are starting with the question, what does this mean for humans, for customers, for people? And one of the things that she was famous for is that if you're going to make AI successful, you have to start by making sure that everyone that's going to be working in AI and working to create solutions with AI is following behind the people that they are trying to help, they are trying to assist, they are trying to create solutions for. And so she would pair her technologists directly with the doctors, with the patients, with the families, with the caregivers, with the nurses, and make them spend entire days and entire weeks with them first before ever touching the technology. Okay? Same idea with Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz in 1988, when he was working at Starbucks, said, you know what? We have to have a differentiated employee experience. We have to change the nature of the game. And even though Starbucks was not performing very well in 1988, he decided to bet the farm and give all of his employees healthcare benefits. Anybody that was 20 hours a week or more. And what we're seeing in companies that are doing well with AI, one of their hallmarks is, even in times when things are lean, they are still doubling down on their investment in their employees and in their skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. Right now at Accenture, we are undertaking the largest transformation of our workforce in our history. And even though our stock is down at the moment, like some of the other AI services companies, we are finding that we have to invest in the complete reinvention of our employees at scale and at pace. Taking 600,000 of our employees through an AI 101 course, 300,000 of them through an AI 201 and 301 course, and our top 10,000 leaders having to pass the technology system. So 13 courses, are we up to 13 maybe? 13 courses that the top 10,000 of our employees have to pass. Okay. The largest investment in our people in our history, at a time when times are lean and they're tough. And that attribute, centered on humans, people, and customers at all times, even when times are lean, is a hallmark of that 18% that are successful with AI. Communicate with radical honesty and integrity. Everybody know who that is? Dr. Fauci, right?
Of course.
So before he became famous around COVID, he was first famous for the battle against AIDS. I had a chance to meet him at the National Portrait Gallery. He was being enshrined at the National Portrait Gallery. And at the National Portrait Gallery now in Washington, D.C., if you ever get to go, it's a really cool place to go. And one of the reasons it's so cool is now, if you get put into the National Portrait Gallery, you get to not only choose your artist, but you get to choose your medium. And Dr. Fauci, because he's had such a long career, decided, I want to have an anime movie. So if you go, his portrait isn't a portrait, it's an anime movie of the story of his career. And what it shows is when AIDS first came and people were dying, there was angry communities and folks that were felt that they weren't being listened to, especially around solutions and trying to come up with answers. And Dr. Fauci took that head on. And he listened. He changed the path by which the CDC was fighting AIDS. That would later inform what he would do with COVID. We all witnessed that throughout the years that we were battling COVID. And what he decided from that experience with AIDS is the only thing and the best thing you can do is you gotta shoot straight. You gotta be honest and have radical integrity. And that communication style is what we're finding in companies that are successful versus those that are not, the leaders that are successful versus those. Because folks, people in your workforces are scared. You're either gonna level with them, you're gonna tell them what you know and what you don't, and where you're trying to go and what's possible, and how this ties to their purpose and the organization's purpose, or you're not. And that's what we're advocating here, is the communication really does matter. All right, I don't have time to go into this story in great detail, because I've got to wrap up. But this is my old boss, Senator Harris Wofford. I did a post on him last week. And in an era of AI, as I mentioned to begin with, we did the breathing and we shook hands or gave a hug, right? Is that it requires leadership with compassion. And the long story short of this story is that he was an advisor to John F. Kennedy. And when the election was happening, Kennedy was neck and neck with Richard Nixon. And it was unsure who was going to win that election. He had the idea, after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been arrested in Atlanta, and the African American community was concerned he was going to be taken out and shot, killed. It was Senator Wofford that had the idea, after studying Gandhi and nonviolence, that there was power to symbolic action, and that there was power in compassion. So what he did was he went around the entire campaign apparatus. He knew he was risking his job. And as John F. Kennedy was about to board a flight from Chicago, he got John F. Kennedy to call the wife of Martin Luther King. And she was 9 months pregnant. She was worried because her husband had been arrested. He had been moved to 2 subsequent jails and further south. And again, prevailing concern was he would be killed. And so he gets to the candidate in this unbelievably tight election. He says, "Would you just call?" John F. Kennedy says, "Yeah, that sounds like a decent human thing to do." So he picks up the phone and he calls Coretta Scott King. And he says, "Hey, I know what's going on. I'm paying attention. I'm concerned for you, the baby, your family." And that's it. That's it. One day later, the press gets a wind of the story that this call was made. John F. Kennedy's brother, Robert F. Kennedy, denies it. He didn't know about it. And John F. Kennedy tells Robert Kennedy, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to retract that." And it turns out that one call would move the entire African American community, which had been largely Republican up to that point, Party of Lincoln, and would move that voting bloc entirely behind John F. Kennedy. In an ultra close election, Richard Nixon would later say, "I lost this election because of the damn vote." But why did he really lose the election? He lost the election because of kindness, because of compassion, because of someone showing that they do. Again, in an era of AI, as leaders, as people in this room, we have to show that we're compassionate, we care. Last one. So I also had the honor of working with Congressman John Lewis. Everybody know who John Lewis is? John Lewis would talk about leading from the front. And leading from the front meant you might die. We talk about it kind of as a nice little cliche, right? But when he was saying it, folks might actually live and die. And he took more than his fair share of beatings and nearly died when he crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge. But the thing I want you to take away and to think about for a second as we talk about AI is Accenture recently changed our mission and our vision statement. And we added to it that we were going to be about the safe, widespread adoption of AI. And there's a sense of hope and optimism. So all those things that I began with, the CNBC report, the Harvard Business School report, the legislators I met with, all that pessimism, we got to replace it with a little bit of purpose and promise and optimism. And one of the things that John Lewis used to tell us when we were trying to get a bill done, and it was always hard and we'd be down and as staff, is you had to have a constant leadership required a constancy of hope and a consistency of optimism. A constancy of hope and a consistency of optimism. And so as you go about your day and you go about your jobs, take that with you. That you can't be a leader if you're not hopeful. You can't be a leader if you're not optimistic. And that ends us where we do. What was the first thing we did?
We greet each other.
We greeted each other and took a breath. AI without humanity is ambition. It will solve for scarcity. It will solve for saying it's a zero-sum game. It will solve for cost efficiency. It will solve for productivity. It will solve for technology. But AI with humanity is aspiration. And in our world today, we conflate the two all the time. We say ambition and aspiration are the same thing, but they're not. Ambition is taken from the Latin. It meant to walk around and to buy votes. Can I buy you a vote? Can't to walk. Aspiration comes from the Latin as well, but it means to breathe. It means life, to give life to. As leaders in this room, we have to be people of aspiration, not ambition. We have to believe in abundance. We have to believe that AI plus humanity will lead that 1 + 1 can equal 3 or 4 or 5. That it's not a zero-sum game. And that with AI, we, and in turn, we with others, can lift this with you. We have to be leaders of aspiration, of breath and of life, and of humanity, not of